Hey guys! Thanks for joining me today. Today we're learning how to use models to multiply fractions. Before we get started, it would be helpful if you had a pencil, some scratch paper, an eraser, and a partner to help you during partner talk. Don't forget, you can always pause the video and go back to parts of the video that you want to review. So let's start with this question. How can this model help us multiply? If you want to pause and write down some ideas or share with someone who's near you, you can, or you can keep the video going. When I see this model and I ask myself this question, how can it help me multiply? It takes me back to when we used arrays to help us with multiplication. Let me draw this out so you can see what I'm talking about. This model has 4 columns, 1, 2, 3, 4. It also has 3 rows going across, 1, 2, and 3. We can multiply 3 times 4 or 4 times 3 by making an array. And then we would count all the sections inside of our array to tell us the total number. In this case, it would be 12. This array helped us with our multiplication facts when we used this model for that purpose. But today we're going to use this type of model to help us with multiplying fractions. So our learning objective is that we're learning how to use models to multiply fractions. Let's take a minute here to think about our self-assessment. How do you feel about this learning objective before we start? Are you at a 4, 3, 2, or 1? Write this down at the top of your scratch paper, and we'll come back to it at the end. Let's review some things we've done in the past which will help us with today's lesson. We can use bar diagrams to find parts of a number, like in this example. We can also multiply a whole number by a fraction by using repeated addition and models. And we've drawn models to multiply and show repeated addition as well, like in this sample. And then of course, we always simplify our fractions in the end. What I really want us to understand today though, and what we're going to be using today, are these types of models to multiply fractions together. We're going to make our models based on our denominators. So in this case, I have a denominator of 3 and a denominator of 4. You're going to make your rows and columns based off of these denominators. So for this one, I used 4 to make these 4 columns here. And then I used 3 to make the rows. We're going to be shading in this model where the fractions intersect. So for 1/3, I'm going to erase these arrows here for a second. I have 1, 2, 3. Out of 3, I shade in this 1 box. Then out of 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, I also shade in the same box. Then I'll be counting up the total number of sections of the whole model. In this case, it would be 12. And I only have 1 shaded. For this sample, I don't need to simplify anything. This is what I really want us to understand when we're making our models, is that we're using our denominators to create it. Our success criteria for today is really based on things that we've done in the past to help us get to this point. So we can already use bar diagrams to model fractions. We can represent fractions with models. We can interpret fractions as division. We can use bar diagrams to find parts of a number. And we've already used models to help us multiply whole numbers and fractions. If you want to be successful with today's lesson, you can go back to these ideas that we've already learned in practice, and it will help us with today's skill. So let me show you a few examples, and then you will try some together. So I have 1/2 and 2/3. I've already created a model here based on the 2 denominators. As you can see, I have 3 columns going across, and then I have 2 rows. Now I'm going to use a different color here to shade in. For 1/2, over here I have 1 and 2, I'm going to shade in 1/2. Going across, I have 3 sections. Since my fraction is 2/3, I'm going to shade in 2/3. But remember, we're making sure we're shading in where the fractions intersect. This total model here has 6 sections. Out of the 6 sections, 2 are filled. So my answer is 2/6, but I need to simplify. 2 can go into 2 one time, and it can go into 6 3 times. So my answer is 1/3. Let me go over the steps, and then I'll show you one more example. So we're going to draw a model based on the fractions. Rows and columns are based on the denominators. We'll shade the model where the two fractions intersect, and we'll count the sections that are shaded. We'll write a fraction based on the shaded model, and we'll simplify as needed. So let's try another one. 1/3 times 1/4. So I'm just going to draw a model. I am going to do 4 columns, and then I'll do 3 rows. So I'll shade in 1/3 first. So here's 1, 2, 3. I'll shade in 1/3. In here, I have 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'll shade in 1/4, and remember where they intersect, so it's in the same area. I'll count up all my sections. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So my total is 12, and I have 1 shaded. This fraction cannot be simplified, so my answer is 1/12. All right, we're ready to try some together. If you would like to pause and try it on your own, you can, or if you want to stick with me, you can do that too. Okay, so let's take a look at this one. We're going to draw a model based on the fractions. So let me draw my rectangle, and I'm going to first draw 3 columns based on this denominator, and I'll draw 6 rows. And it looks like, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm gonna add that here on the bottom. Okay, so now I'll fill in and shade my model. So for 2/3, I'm going to go across here because I have 2 out of 1, 2, 3. I'll use a different color to shade 1/6. So here I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'm going to do it where it intersects right here. I'm going to write my fraction based on my model. I have 2 shaded, and I have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times 1, 2, 3, which is 18. So my answer is 2/18, but I need to simplify. 2 can go into 2 one time, and it can go into 18 9 times. So my answer is 1/9. Before we move forward, let's do some talking about our math. I'm going to choose the first one. I found the answer by making a model and shading in my model based on the fractions. All right, let's try another one. 3/4 times 1/6. Remember, if you want to pause and try it on your own and then check to see if you have the right answer, you can do that, or you can stick along with me. So I'm going to draw my model, and this time I'm going to make 6 columns. Let's see, how many do I have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'll add one here for 6. And then we're going to do 4 rows. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I'll shade in 1/6 first right here. So I have 1 out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to choose a different color to shade in 3/4. So look here, I have 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to shade in 1, 2, 3. And now I count my total that I have shaded, which is 1, 2, and 3, out of the total that I have, which is 1, 2, 3, 4 times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which is 24. So my answer is 3/24, which can be simplified. 3 can go into 3 one time, and it can go into 24 8 times. So my answer is 1/8. Now let's talk about it. I can make a parallel connection to making an array because I use the array strategy to help me multiply when I'm finding the denominator. All right, let's try this one. For this model, I have the same denominator, so I'm going to have 5 columns, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 5 rows, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 1/5 right here going across, and then I'm going to have 3/5, 1, 2, 3 going up. So that means I have 3 that are filled in. And how many total do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which gives me 25. So my answer is 3/25. That can't be simplified, so that is my answer. Let's talk about it. So I could say I can check my work by looking at my model and making sure that I have the correct number of rows and columns and that I counted the shaded sections correctly. Let's try this word problem. Ruby biked a trail that is 3/5 mile each way. After biking 1/4 of the trail, she stopped to rest. What fraction of a mile did Ruby bike before she stopped to rest? Use a model to help you solve. So it looks like we're going to be multiplying 3/5 times 1/4 because she biked a trail that is 3/5 mile. We want to know how many miles she biked or what fraction of a mile she biked after 1/4 because she stopped to rest. So now I'm going to draw my model. So I'm going to make 4 columns and 5 rows. And I'm going to shade in. I have 1/4, which would be down here. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then 3/5, so 1, 2, 3. We have a total of 3 shaded out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times 1, 2, 3, 4, which would give me 20. This can't be simplified, so it looks like the fraction of a mile that she biked before she stopped was 3/20 of a mile. Now let's talk about it. It's important to know the skill because when we use models, it helps us to really understand the amount that's happening, especially with fractions. It's interesting to see how small a fraction can actually be when we're using our models. So it really helps us to visualize our math. What was our learning objective today? Today, we learned how to use models to multiply fractions. How are you feeling right now at the end of the lesson? With your self-assessment, are you at a 4, 3, 2, or 1? If you needed to explain how to use models to multiply fractions, what might you tell somebody? Go ahead and write it down or talk to someone near you. You could use these steps to explain to somebody how they could use models to help them with multiplying fractions. You draw a model based on the fractions using rows and columns based on the denominators. Shade the model where the two fractions intersect or meet. Count the sections that are shaded. Write a fraction based on the shaded model, and then simplify if needed. Now, taking a look at this model, what type of real-world math problem might you come up with? You can pause and write it out, or you can listen to the one I've come up with. Since looks like I have 2/3 shaded here, and then it looks like there's 3/5 shaded here, I might come up with something that's like 2/3 of students played baseball. Of those, 3/5 also played basketball. What fraction of the students played both sports? So that would mean I'd have to multiply to find the answer. I would just like to say thank you so much for following along and learning how to use models to multiply fractions. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to see more lessons. Thank you guys.